Amen.
Amen.
May the words that are heard be thine and not mine. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Looking out at the road rushing under my wheels, looking back at the years gone by like so many summer fields. In 65, I was 17 and running up 1 to 1. I don't know where I'm running now. I'm just running on. Running on. Running on empty. Running on. Running behind. Running on. Running into the sun, but I'm running behind. In case you did not recognize them, those are the lyrics of Running on Empty by Jackson Browne, famous in their own right, but etched in our pop cultural mindset by the epic movie Forrest Gump. You may recall the iconic scene with the song as its musical backdrop when Forrest is running alone into the sunset on some nowhere roadway with what appears to be no real destination in sight, but soon to run out of energy and motivation. Do you ever feel that way? Do you ever feel like, you're just running about, rushing, hurry, with no end in sight? The end of the day comes and all you have accomplished is an effort at an impossible things to do list, with tomorrow's equivalent looming just beyond the alarm clock's way too early starting gun for the next sprint into the rat race. There's really no wonder that Americans are some of the most frequently diagnosed with anxiety and stress conditions, this guy included. We just seem to be running on empty. Well, today's lections approach the subject of empty, unfulfilled living. Let's take a look. By this point in Job, our story's main character has reached rock bottom. His undeserved, unfair, and perplexing suffering has forced him to the lowest point possible. That is, on this side of the dirt, as my grandmother would used to say. Actually, Job would probably have preferred the other side of the dirt based on his suffering. In Hebrews, our great high priest and king, he's described as similarly beaten down, literally, by his suffering. Our provision of grace and mediator, broken and spilled out. Once again, the misery experienced is due a divine and seemingly removed God. And finally, in our gospel, we find another instance of the disciples fixated on their long-standing expectation of Messiah, only to find that he was something incarnately different. James and John ask Jesus. In another gospel account, it's their helicopter mother who asks. But they ask if they might sit at his right and left when he comes into his power. The question infers that Jesus would soon be crowned king in Jerusalem and his reign would be worldwide. So these two ambitious sorts, opportunists, want to be his top advisors with all the position and fame and wealth and authority that come with it. Jesus assures them that they did not want to flank him when he came into his glory. Ironically, it would be two thieves crucified at his right and left that noonday at Golgotha. So, James and John assure him they did want to be at his right side in keeping with their misunderstanding of his passion, even though by now he had attempted to convey it often, many times, and they just weren't getting it. So he assures them they would have their cross to bear soon enough. Note, many of the 12 eventually did perceive their mission and served faithfully, and many were executed brutally. Interestingly, rather than browbeating them, once again he takes the opportunity to teach them via the method of allegory. He affirms what would have been obvious to them, that rulers of that day lord it over them, to use his words. They aren't just. They deprive and exploit. That is not the function of leadership in the kingdom that Jesus was trying to establish. If you want to be at his right hand, another note, Jesus has been raised and is at the right hand of the Father. If you want to be on Christ's right hand, then your desire, your objective must be different than the secular model. This disposition is so unnatural for us. It requires a change from within, something spiritual. The first must be last. True leadership is servanthood. Did you notice that all three of our lections today have suffering as a key component? Here the idea of necessary suffering recurs. Now let me say again, I do not believe that God sends suffering your way to test you or to smack you back into submission. Other denominations attest this practice dogmatically as a key pillar in their theological constructs of guilt and fear. The impact of incarnational grace changes that narrative entirely. We do not worship a cosmic puppeteer toying with us capriciously. However, when trials come, and they do come, due to the precarious and broken nature of our human existence, then God intentionally works through those misfortunes to aid us in our becoming. This spiritual concept is commonly described as kenosis, or the kenotic theory, as represented in Philippians, particularly chapter 2. Its root is keno in the Greek, or to self-empty. It's also understood to make oneself nothing. Remember, Elijah found God in the nothingness, the stillness. Christ, who did not consider his demotion into humanness as something to be exploited, nonetheless lowered himself to be a man, Jesus, and then to be poured out, emptied on the cross. The concept is mind-blowing. God became man to do what? But then God raised Christ and not only restored his life, but lifted him up on high to be seated next to God. Oh, James and John, you didn't get it. Really, the rest of us as well. We do not attain such heights without great cost. We must be poured out entirely to the point where we are empty, nothing without God. So desirous of God that all else is stripped away. Then we become. Many ascetics seek this becoming through self-denial, discipline, focus, meditation. Even so, it's difficult to achieve. We, especially in our Western, affluent, self-sufficient culture, almost have to be taken down to the mat just so our focus can be reshifted. And then we can see more clearly. Now do you understand why in the next few verses in Mark, Bartimaeus will ask Jesus to regain his sight. Regain his sight. So what's the bottom line? How does this apply to Madison, Alabama in 2018 when we're more concerned about trash pandas? I think that it's fair to suggest that most everyone here present has experienced their fair share of difficult times, right? We're all members of that common order. Times that hurt us, drained us, emptied us. We, like Job, have found ourselves on the ash heap, or like Jesus, being just poured out bare and empty. It's in those points that we must refill. We regain our sight. Believe me, there will be many options on which you may focus, on which your tanks could be replenished. Guilt, anger, obsession, addictions, isolationism, materials. The key is choosing the correct source, the right octane for your make and model. At the deepest point of our being, a place only reached via painful, sometimes forced emptying, often not by our choosing. That's when we learn. That's when we are emptied, but can be poured full again with abundance and peace and fulfillment and joy. This is the real lesson of Job. The Job saga. The same lesson the 12 and the rest of us had and have to learn, and often the hard way. When you are emptied, you have to refill. And only one source provides the something that you so desperately crave. Otherwise, you're just running on empty. Amen.